So we have Monica Lochmandy today, luxury real estate broker. She's facilitated over $256 million in sales in the past, I think it was decade. We'll double check on that.
Wow.
That's insane. Right?
That is incredible.
She's very classy, understated, in the best way.
Right, but obviously a very smart businesswoman.
Yeah, and very well respected. She won awards this year and last year in local real estate organizations, and obviously I know her pretty well. Super sensitive soul. There's a lot more to her than meets the eye, actually, that people don't know about, and I'm only just discovering new things about her, and that's why I asked her here. She's been through a huge personal tragedy, and now she has to support and raise her family. That takes something. I mean, what kept her going? Was it her children and having to be here for them, or so she lost her husband, but not only is she still here for her kids and she's raising them and she's being their mother, she's also this incredible businesswoman out of no choice, probably. She's still got to support herself and put her kids through college. So it takes an incredible person.
Yeah, it's a lot of strength.
Yeah, and I think that we're really privileged to be able to speak to her today, because I want to understand more about how she's operating and what she's doing to heal herself. And I know she's been putting a lot of work in, and I want to know if that healing that she's giving to herself, like she goes away on these retreats and she's meeting these speakers. She did all those things because she had to. I wonder if she feels that we should all be doing more of that stuff anyway, and how her view on life and what it's meant for her now. Right.
What a great example of someone who can take something terrible and just really better yourself.
Absolutely. We know quite a few people that over the past few years have seen tragedy, but they've got to keep going. There's no choice in that matter. So I'm looking forward to seeing Monica. Hopefully we can have some smiles too. I think that she's definitely a success story, and I'm looking forward to see, what she's going to do next.
Yeah, I can't wait to meet her.
Hello and welcome. My name's Carey Sheffield, photographer and CEO of my own successful business. I'm also the host of SheNETWorks, a great believer in lifting up women and loyal supporter to those that are around me. We are all surrounded by incredible women who are breaking the molds in this thing called life. Behind every successful online persona is a real person facing struggles, failures, and living real life stories that don't always have happy endings. We will have an honest conversation, dispel this myth of perfection, and find out what they consider a success, how they achieved it, and learn what they are still reaching for. You are not alone. Join the conversation.
Welcome, Monica. Monica Lochmandy, luxury real estate broker. But you've come today, you had a little think about your bio.
Yes.
So read out your bio for us today that you've recreated for yourself.
I thought about it because, there's so much more than what I do to who I am. And so what is a bio? I don't know really the true definition, but for me, what my bio is at this moment in life is I am a humble human navigating my way through life's adventures, doing my best to savor each moment, live in gratitude, serve others, and be kind.
I love that. And I think our conversation is going to bounce around.
Okay.
Because I have all these questions in here, and just the fact that you've taken this time to create this for yourself. Now, in terms of a bio, in terms of business, it's just a few lines on your LinkedIn account, so when people see you, they can know who you are. I think what you've done here would be a very healthy and a really great exercise for people to just do if they're feeling like they don't know where they are in life. Mm-hmm. And maybe more for women than for men, because we're such emotional creatures. Not to say that men are devoid of that emotion, but they just operate on a different level. I sometimes think women need a title and a direction and a label in order to just get up and exist every day. And there's a period in our lives where we are spending countless hours wondering who we are and where we are right now and whatever. So I love that you've done that, and I'm so happy to have it, and the fact that you shared it in that way, and it just came to me in that moment, because let's all go away and do that. Let's sit down and have a think about who we are and how we're seen and our representation of ourselves to the world, because it does matter.
I think in that we get so caught up sometimes in our roles that we lose ourselves to the structure of each role, mother, wife, real estate agent, sister, whatever it may be, and we lose the essence of who we are as humans. And so sometimes, I found that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to strip that down and say, who am I really? What is my real bio?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the core of it.
But no, and I love that. And yes, let's dial it back a little bit and talk about what you do. So you're a luxury real estate broker.
Yes.
You facilitated, and I don't know how old this article was, but I did some searching on you. You facilitated over $256 million in sales. And I think the past few months that might have gone up just a little bit.
Maybe,
yes.
Yes.
But were you always in real estate, or when did that start? Let's have a little bit of a career conversation.
Okay, so probably the first real estate deal I did was back in 91, 92, and it was
That's
actually...
only 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, just a few. Actually, the property was right behind us.
Ah.
So I bought a lot, 2 lots side by side. It was a office and a little house on Mariposa.
Wow,
And,
yeah, literally where my parking lot is.
Yes.
That no one ever seems to be able to find.
Yes. And bought a few more rentals in the area. So that's how I started. My husband and I started as real estate investors.
Oh, okay.
And we would renovate, and we would rent and landlord. We did a couple flips, and that's really the beginning of it. And then...
but before real estate, before you were a real estate investor,
yes.
Coming out of high school, going to college, what was your career path?
So college, I actually was pre-med for 3 years. I love medicine. My family were doctors.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought I wanted to be a doctor. But there was a pivotal moment where I was at my aunt's house, and my cousins, we were all sitting around the dinner table, and she got up and left. I'm like, where is she going? Oh, she got called again. Mom was never here. And it was kind of in that moment that I realized that to be a doctor, that is your life.
Yeah.
And even though I loved it, I wasn't dedicated enough. I wanted other things, lifestyle. And so I changed to marketing, a total shift business. Yeah. And Keith and I ended up doing 2 or 3 different types of businesses before we went into...
So where did you meet in college?
College.
College, as I say, when you say that, it's almost like...
Yeah, when I was 20. So we were like together since I was,
Okay.
We met in college.
So then I think that's a good time to talk about Keith. And there's lots of other things that I want to talk about, but I think that I'm interested in how you've managed your career life since Keith. And we're going to talk about that, and you're wearing the boat around your neck, I've just noticed. So that's obviously a very special thing. So I met you a few years ago now, and I really got to know you, and I only had the pleasure of meeting Keith one time. And then I think it was like a week later, Keith was diagnosed with leukemia.
Right.
Tell us about that time, if you're happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're not happy, but comfortable now.
Sure, I'm comfortable. I think we had just moved, and his parents were coming over to see the house, so he had been out all day trimming the trees and getting the house ready to show off to his parents. He was so excited about them coming over. He was a very physical guy. He liked to do a lot of that himself. And so they came, saw the house, we spent some time. The next morning he woke up and was feeling just terrible. But it was a more terrible than he normally would feel. He was a healthy guy. So we took him to the emergency room. One of my doctor friends thought it was just dehydration because he'd been in the sun all day. And so that's what we expected. And we get there and they start doing the regular routine exams, and one test led to another that had bad results, led to another bad results, and that's when he was diagnosed with acute promyelocytic leukemia that is supposedly highly treatable. They told us it had a 70% cure rate, and they started him immediately on this chemotherapy, which was basically arsenic.
Wow.
And to see people walk into the hotel room, hospital room with hazmat suits on.
Wow.
And delivering this, and you're just sitting there and they're putting this stuff in your husband's veins. I can't tell you how much.
So from working in the garden the day before to the next day, this is
Yes.
what's happening.
And then literally 30 days later, he passed. So
I mean, I remember the shock, the fallout, the absolute disbelief.
Yep.
I had the privilege of meeting him for just a minute and talking to him and seeing this lovely, lovely man. And then a month later, I mean, it was a month and a week or something like that, I think. Right. We were all just in this huge shock. I want to talk about what you and your family had just done. I still have this notion, and I don't know how you feel about this. I don't even know if I voiced this to you. I feel like there was a bigger entity at play in the fact that you and your husband and your children disappeared and shocked everyone and sold things and packed up and disappeared around the world on a boat for a year. I feel like that thing happened and you'll always have that memory. You have 1,000 memories and millions of memories with Keith, and he was the love of your life, I know that. But the fact that you got to do that with each other, how do you feel about that in relation to losing him so young and so suddenly?
It was one of those moments that, for whatever reason, we just decided it was time to do it. We had done it before, living on a boat, when we'd been married 2 or 3 years, and we took off. We did a monohull. We sailed down to South America and back over a course of 2 years. And we had such incredible experiences, and we grew so much as people and so much in our relationship, and we're able to see different aspects of the world that we always knew that whenever we had children, we wanted to do this with them. So when our kids turned 13, we just felt that was the time, because they still wanted to be with us enough, but they were starting to slip away into that teenagehood. So we're like, if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. And literally, they were at Lake Highland. We pulled them out of school to start homeschooling them, and we did. We rented out our house, sold everything, and just bought a catamaran. And
amazing.
And yes, everybody was like, "Are you crazy? You're taking them from here. What's going to happen with their, college applications?" And all this. People were so concerned for us and thought we were just being kind of ridiculous. But one of the things that I was wanting to do is I wanted the kids to be away from social media, to be away from technology, to be, we didn't have a television, we didn't have a radio, we had nothing. And so there are so many moments of just sheer boredom where we played a lot of card games and, just talked. And it was, in retrospect, I'm so thankful because we spent so much time, not just quality time, but quantity time together.
And were there any hairy moments when you're out on a catamaran? I mean, that you obviously, clearly you're skilled sailors. Is there a better word for that? You're skilled in boatmanship. When you're out, wild oceans, I just see the movies where, there's a disaster, the rope snaps or something crazy. Yeah, I mean, tell us about it.
We did. We had not as many on the second trip because we were very particular in where we sailed with the young kids, but on the first trip we had encounters with pirates.
Wow.
We had a moment where our engine broke and we were like going through this pass where there were rocks on each side, and Keith was down in the bulkhead trying to fix the engine. I was holding the book and reading to him, this is don't touch that one, clip this one, don't do it. Like literally we didn't know what engine
Wayne and I
was,
would
but
kill
we were
each
like,
other, honestly. Yeah. Were you good? You
Yes.
were just you were obviously very, very good friends, but were you good for each other that way? You could talk to each other without friction?
We were. We had our moments, but no, I think that sailing trip really helped us learn how to fight. Because we fought, but we learned how to fight. Yeah. Because we had to depend on each other. There was, for our lives, literally. We had a moment that we were in these islands off of the coast of Venezuela called Los Testigos, and Keith loved to look for these Japanese glass buoys because they were used way back hundreds of years ago, and they were really valuable, and they would float up onto different islands. So a lot of times when we would go to these islands, he would poke around in the brush looking for these treasures. And we were in these islands called Los Testigos, and with one other boat, and he got into this bush called Machinilla, and he rubbed his eyes without knowing what it was, and all of a sudden his eyes were on fire.
No. Oh my
And
goodness.
he was screaming. This was an uninhabited island, so it was just us and this other boat. So, with the four of us, there's another couple, we were like walking him onto the boat, jumped on there. I'm calling on the Mayday, and we find another island close by that we have to boat over to that has this Navy patrolman there that delivers him this cortisone shot that basically saved his life, because they said the next step is anaphylactic shock.
Wow.
So there were a lot of those type of really poignant moments that, it's kind of you're in that little cusp of maybe life and death, or at least very fearful.
Yeah.
And
Crisis.
storms
yeah.
and...
But what about beautiful moments? I'm sure there were many.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, especially in the trip with the children, is there any one moment that stands out to you that was so special?
Yes, we were there's a little island called Water Island that's just off of St. Thomas. And it's this beautiful little enclave. There's a couple bar restaurants there. They had this potluck dinner on Christmas Day. And everybody was tasked with bringing something to the potluck. And, my son Blake loves to bake. And so somehow he made this little gingerbread house. And, I just remember getting off the dinghy onto the beach. We had our little gingerbread house that we're bringing to this potluck. And, seeing all the other sailors there from all different walks of life. And everybody we didn't really know anybody because we were all kind of strangers, but it was the same village that was coming together to celebrate this special time. And it was just one of those definitely really beautiful moments that we're just kind of sitting there going, we're so lucky to be here.
So how long were you home before you lost Keith?
It was probably about a year and a half-ish.
Yeah, it didn't feel very long.
No, it wasn't.
Felt, I know, and I don't know how you felt. I know that your world just fell completely and utterly apart on every level, emotionally, physically, all of the things. How long has it been since? We're looking at 4 years. Wow, it's gone so fast. But so... sadly, people find themselves in this situation. Tragedy strikes. I know that you're putting yourselves through so many different channels of healing. So I have so many questions here around this. So I'm going to try and just give it in small bites. In that immediate few days, I'm sure it's disbelief. You're completely in shock. There was no warning for this. This could have been a car accident. It happened so fast.
Correct.
Was it just your children that kept you here?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that you wanted to stay. And you had a very special relationship. He felt like you was your best friend. He's your soulmate. It was the real deal. Yep. So, I mean, can you remember how you felt in that time and what was going through your mind? And just talk like all of the questions over the unfolding weeks and months. I mean, the first few days, it's just devastating grief. But what kind of journey have you gone through in the process? It's
been such an interesting question, Carey. You question everything. Why me? Why him? How do I go on? Do I go on? What's the purpose and all of that? And the kids obviously are what keeps you moving forward, because you want to have a happy life for them. You don't want to just be sad all the time. And I reached out to so many different people, and one thing I kept hearing over and over, and actually before I came here today, I'm like, what can I bring to this conversation for you and for your maybe people that might be listening? And I kept hearing the dark night of the soul. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the dark night of the soul, but centuries ago, John Cross, he was a mystic in Spain, he wrote this poem called The Dark Night of the Soul. And they talk about this moment in our souls' lives where you are literally thrust into chaos, and everything that you have attached to, or your ego has attached to, or that has given you meaning for who you are, is being stripped away. And I think that this moment for me has been a dark night of the soul, because my identity was so much based on, Keith and I and the things we did. And in those moments, those couple years later, I lost my husband. Then we got hit by COVID,
Yes.
Which is another huge, fear. My son had this big tumor on his back that we were concerned about. That
did not know.
Oh, it was like the size of a tennis ball. So we had that removed. That was another fear thing. I ended up selling my house and I moved into a rental. Then the landlord sold the rental, so I had to move. So I moved twice.
Yeah.
And I mean, all these little things, like even, for example, a month after Keith passed, this huge tree fell in our backyard, massive, across the back of the pool, across the fence, just out of nowhere, just boom, huge. I had my license plate stolen on my car, which I had to go, and then it's like, well, you're not on the title of the car. Your husband's on. You don't even. You have to leave the car here because you don't really own the car.
Oh my goodness.
And so that was another.
All these things.
All of these things, and
I feel like your husband was chucking all these distractions at you, like just to keep you going.
It was like the comedy of the universe. Like, what
Yes.
more can you throw at me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of thing. You feel like you're Atlas and you're holding up the world.
Yeah.
And so, I think. So I kind of dove into this dark night of the soul thought process that, maybe it's all happening for a reason. And I started to lean on that Stoic philosophy that instead of, this happening to me, it's happening for me. And why is it happening for me? What am I supposed to learn from this? What is my family supposed to learn from this? And so I've been really conscientious about trying to figure that out and trying to be thankful for everything that I've had. I mean, I had a wonderful job environment that kept me going because I was able to be distracted.
Yeah.
And, a lot of support and whatnot. So it's been, very difficult for sure.
And we'll talk about the emotions on a practical sense. Obviously, you had investments and you had business things going on, but you're not expecting to lose your husband so early. Hopefully, you had yourselves taken care of, but you're also in a stressful job. So you did find yourself coming back to work. You're handling teenagers. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressful is your day-to-day work life?
10.
Yeah.
Yes.
And people are going to listen to you talking, and they're going to hear your intelligence, the way you present yourself, and you're eloquent and well-spoken. So I can imagine that you are the oil on to calm the waters, so so to speak, that you bring a certain temperament to every situation. But I'm sure you get stressed. I mean, how does that manifest itself? How do you know when enough's enough? How are you dealing with that on a daily basis? Because you go home alone now. You're an empty nester too.
Yes.
So I mean, with the stress and the loneliness and all the things you needed to circumnavigate, how does that look for you every day?
I think it's different. I don't know that I've mastered that yet. Some days, I think for the most part, now it's a little bit, they say grief is like waves, and then it becomes like the smaller waves and smaller. I think the waves are smaller now. I used to cry all the time, like at the drop of a hat. I could listen to the radio, and one song would just turn it, the rest of my day. And so, now I cope. I don't turn the radio on before I go to work. If I have a really big meeting, I don't listen to the radio because I just have learned. And so, you get these coping mechanisms. And, for me, a lot of it's been I call certain people, or I listen to a certain song, or I turn on one of my YouTube favorite teachers, like Michael Singer or something like that, and that really helps me cope.
When did you start on that process of healing, when you started reaching out? Were you somebody that was quite spiritual before all of this happened? I mean, you were clearly embracing life, and I felt like your husband was quite a spiritual person. He had that energy about him in the brief moment I met him. But, when did you feel like, okay, I need to now go find help and find certain people? Where did that start?
I think it did start before. We actually had this store. This is one of our failed businesses called Learn How Now.
Well, it doesn't sound like it failed because you're taking something from it,
right?
Yeah?
It failed financially, but it was so good in so many other ways.
Yes.
But we sold these programs from different speakers, and some were real estate, some were like Wayne Dyer's, some were like how to teach your dog tricks, things like crazy things like that. So it was in that process that we really started to dig into some of these spiritual teachers, and I learned a lot. And so that was back in 93, 94, when we were just getting out of college.
Yeah, it's like 29 years. I know because my son's that age, but yeah.
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 So we really started digging into some of those books and some of those teachers, and I had that, we would, in the mornings, we would talk a lot about, okay, who are we? What do we want out of life? Are we doing the right thing?
Not every couple's doing that.
We had those checks. Yeah, we had
Yes.
those checks.
Yeah.
We set goals once a year. We went to a different hotel January 1st, and we would, write down our goal list. And I have all these books
That's amazing.
of our goals for like 30 years. And, it's kind of sad about some of the goals we still haven't accomplished. They're like just they
you
roll
working
to the
through
next
them
year,
for
roll to the
yourself?
next year. One of them is get in shape. So
Well, you look amazing. Always
thank
have.
you,
But
thank
yeah.
you.
And wow, I love that. Oh, yeah. I mean, is it just the saddest thing that the most beautiful people in the most beautiful relationships, it would make you wonder why.
Yeah.
And, to listen to you talk, there are so many couples that don't communicate, let alone take themselves off to a hotel at the first day of the year and set out their goals. And I know that there's people in this room now listening thinking, that's really good, I'm going to take that. This kind of stuff, I know that you're around a lot of people that are in healing and teachers, and you take yourself... What are you taking are you bringing it into your work life? Are you taking what you've learned or taking what you know and what you've experienced and using it to do better in your job?
Definitely. I'm definitely calmer now. I used to have, we have a lot of very big personalities and sometimes difficult situations. And I've been able to now really tell myself, this is not life or death. This is just an emotional, problem this person's having perhaps. Before I would take it much more to heart. Now I see the big things are not that big. And also I've learned so much more about just like listening more. I told one of my colleagues the other day, we were having this conversation in one of our sales meetings, and she kind of went on and on. So I pulled her aside later and I said, are you saying things because they need to be said or because you want to be heard? And so I think there's a lot of fine-tuning of the way we live our life that I have dug into from all these teachings, and I've applied to my job for sure.
Yeah, and what would you say? I know that you've done lots over the past 12 months especially. Talk to us about some of the places that you've been. It's interesting, and I know we keep trying to plan to have that meeting where we sit there, or lunch, dinner, whatever.
Yes.
And I know you've been so kind to give me books and things that could help me with grief. So talk about some of the places that you've been and how it's helped you, and one place that you would go, every person you meet, you want to tell them they need to do this thing.
Yes. Well, one of them was the Deepak Chopra. He has a couple different events, and the one he at his events, he has different speakers, and they have exercises and ways that you can, communicate with others and learn about yourself and about them. And you realize that, gosh, everybody has problems. Everybody.
Yeah.
And we help each other so much when we just talk about things. One of the exercises he had us do was we were in these two huge concentric circles. This was a lot of people. And we placed our hands one above the other hand and stared into each other's eyes for 1 minute. And they would ring a bell, and you'd move to the next person. Ring a bell, move to the next person. And so you're going around a circle, and you're looking into about 40 to 50 people's eyes for 1 minute. And you're not touching your hands, but you're feeling the energy of each other's hands. And you don't realize how hard it is just to look in people's eyes for 1 minute.
It's a long time.
Yes. But after that exercise, they had people share how it made them feel. And, some people said, wow, nobody's ever looked at me. And, some people said, well, I've always felt uncomfortable looking in men's eyes. Or, and so all the different experiences. And it was such a beautiful moment. It was so
How did
interesting.
it feel for you?
For me, I felt like I was really seeing into these people's souls. I just felt like such a connection with strangers that I never spoke to before or even after, because literally there's probably 400 or 500 people in this conference.
And what's the long-term effect of that? How does that turn into something that you can use every day?
I think long-term, it makes you realize that we all need to slow down and make a more concentrated effort to making a connection. and just to look people in the eyes. Like you don't realize how much that affects you, just to look someone in the eye and smile, you know, just that kindness.
Yeah,
We lose that.
We were talking previously in another podcast about homelessness. And how when people don't have something to give, they ignore the person that's there.
Yeah.
And really just looking at them and acknowledging their presence and saying hello or seeing them.
Just to be seen.
Just to be seen. Isn't it interesting how being seen
Yes.
and heard, but being seen especially is so important. I know when I was in Rwanda, when we were on the buses and we weren't allowed, I was in an empowerment program, so we couldn't give money and food because it was about empowering. That, you know, when you give charity, the moment you take it away, they still need charity. So teach a man to fish, being the philosophy. But when you made eye contact with people living in extreme poverty on the street, I'm not important, but them just being seen, their faces would literally light up.
Right.
And don't underestimate the power of acknowledging someone and looking at them and just, the smile, the feeling.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're in an industry and you're doing very well at it. And you've won multiple awards over the past couple of years. Coming from where you've come from, where you could have just give up and walk away, that just gives it even more accolades behind it. I'm sure Keith was very proud of you.
Thank you.
But what do you think he'd be most proud of you for?
Probably just sticking with it.
Yeah.
You know, just
even these chucking trees down in your
persevering.
garden and like throwing things at you.
Exactly, just sticking.
You'd be like,
with
dude,
it.
where are you? What's going on?
Yes.
You've got a sense of humour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But so tell us about your awards. The past couple of years, you've won interesting gala that they give out the awards, but you've won some very significant awards lately.
Yes.
Tell us about those.
You know, won awards for being one of the top producers. We're going to be close to $100 million this year.
Wow.
Yes, so that's pretty good. And for having, you know, highest sales of every sale over $1 million, which is pretty good in this industry, being in the top 2%. I don't know. It's funny because I don't, it's bad to say I don't look at the awards that much.
No, I know, I understand that.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked you to talk about your awards, because you are, as your bio says, rightly so, a very humble person and such a fine, elegant woman in a market and in an industry that is everything but that for the most part. But on the outside looking in, it feels cutthroat, it feels completely shallow, very often unpleasant and shady, and just people just going after what they want in such a big way. And maybe you don't deal with that kind of market so much. You're in the top echelons of, property. How do you stay so beautiful of soul when you're surrounded? Yes, by beautiful
sharks.
bricks. Yeah, exactly. Sharks living in mansions.
By
but
sharks,
I mean,
yes,
it must be an interesting juxtaposition for you.
Yeah, it really is.
Because you're a spiritual person. This is the least spiritual.
Yeah.
Although, do you feel, is there some sort of connection when you take a couple to a house where you feel, this is the house for you?
Yes.
I mean, I feel I can walk into a house and go, I can't be here, this is not for me, and walk
Yes.
out. And not everyone has that. And you don't always get that privilege, actually. Some of your clients never even step in the front door until afterwards. But yeah, how are you bringing that into your role?
Well, our clients are used to having a lot of advisors. You know, they have their accountants, their attorneys, and so I have a very big role, I feel, in their life of being their real estate advisor. And they put a lot of confidence and faith in me. So to me, it's a huge responsibility. And I know that this is, not for our clients, since we do deal with the top luxury, wealthy, it's not necessarily the largest investment in their life, like for some of the lower level clientele. But they really do have the faith that we are going to bring them what we feel is the best for them. So I have to navigate that relationship and make sure that I'm taking care of them at the same time, negotiating with them. It's a very complicated business, and they do get very emotional. It's not uncommon for people to yell at us, to curse at us, too. So there's many, many times I put them on speaker and I just let them let it go, knowing that they're going to come back to base and they're going to be okay with it, everything. So yeah, it's just, you get a very strong, thick skin where it doesn't affect you as much, and you just do the best you can do.
And you're obviously teaching people, because there are people around you beneath you working for you. Let's talk about the industry a little bit and what you're seeing in the industry, what you'd like to see change. And if you were to, be training people based on what the industry looks like right now, what would you do? What would you implement into your training scheme that is not happening everywhere? There's a lot of industries, and everyone wants to be a realtor.
Right.
Everyone wants to be a photographer. And they go out and do those two jobs without any training.
Right.
They just pick up a camera or go get a license. I mean, you can train for 2 weeks or a month or something and get a realty license.
Oh, sure.
So, and I know that you're way beyond that level, but it must frustrate you seeing. So, what are you seeing that never used to be there? What has changed in the industry? Almost denigrated it a little bit, because it's so oversaturated that you would like to see differently, and how would you train that?
That's a good question.
For people that are thinking about going into the industry, thinking about where you are right now, everyone wants to be in the luxury market. So let's make the question easier. What skill set do you need in order to be in a luxury market? And what should you go and do before you decide to call yourself a luxury realtor? And I know you're a broker, so there's a difference there. But, what do these people need to go and do in order to be where you are today?
Well, first of all, you have to be ready to work hard. You have to be ready to be available at all hours, weekends, nights, because our clientele, they work a lot themselves. So they're only available at certain times, and you have to be available when they are available. So I think a lot of people come into the business thinking it's going to be, 9 to 5, or maybe not as much work as it actually is. And it is being available at all hours of the day. We have a lot of clients that are overseas, so there's different time zones. And also that comes with, you need to be aware of different cultures. And different cultures negotiate different. They understand contracts differently, so you have to be able to explain things in a way that people understand. Another thing that I feel like a lot of our agents don't do is they don't listen well enough. We have assumptions that we think we know what's best for people, what we think that they are going to want. And I think I see a lot of mistakes being made there where,
Sorry about that.
So I have this, one of my lessons is the Susie Kazoozie lesson, where Keith and I were doing this deal, and this woman that was selling her house, we drove into her driveway, and she's like, "Oh, that's such a beautiful truck." And she starts talking about the truck, and we kept trying to bring it back to the house that we wanted to buy and what she wanted for the house, and she kept bringing it back to the truck. And it clicked in a moment. We realized that, gosh, she really wants the truck. And so we start talking about the truck, and she tells us how she's always wanted to buy a truck, but she feels uncomfortable with car salesmen, and she can't get herself to go down. So long story short, we traded the truck for a big portion of the house.
Wow.
And so I always tell my colleagues, that's my Susie Kazoozies. I don't assume that you think you know what they want or what's best for them, and listen more and help structure deals in a way that is getting to what the seller and the buyer really want, not what you think they want.
Yeah. I do see a lot of egotistic personalities working in the industry. You see a lot of videos now where you see more of the person walking around selling than you do of the property. It's all about them. You're absolutely right. It looks very glamorous. There's lots of nice outfits, high shoes and fancy handbags, rather than doing the job.
Right. People don't care about that stuff. They want to see the house. They want to know what's, and they want to know that you care about them.
It's interesting that it's become so cosmetic. There's a lot of it. And maybe it's just the market we're in, it's where we are. Well, no, actually, that's a lie. There are TV shows, they're selling sunsets, there's all that kind of stuff.
I watched that the other day.
That's making it about the glamour of it. I think that's going to turn on its head. I think it's going to, maybe in your area, in your market, it's not going to happen, because I just feel like it's discrediting the business of putting people in a home that they love and they enjoy or whatever. I don't know, what would make that change? Maybe just people getting fed up with the superfluous and the shallow, and just wanting a real integrity and a real relationship.
I agree.
How do you think people that work with you, if I was to sit them down and ask them about you, what would they say?
I think that they know that I really care about them. You know, I have these relationships that go on for years. Now I'm getting, you know, they're bringing their children to buy a house with me. And I
That's scary, right?
Yeah, I know. No,
they're only 7, but they're ready for a house.
Yeah. Okay. So they're, you know, so I think that people would think that, you know, I really care and that I'm going to do the best for them. That I'm going to work hard, I'm going to find them something good, and I'm going to make sure all the details are covered, and I'm going to take care of them.
If you had your time again, would this be the job that you would do?
I love real estate. I think this would be one of the jobs. You know, there's still other things that I want to do.
And there's still things you are doing.
Yeah.
Tell me, and a lot of people don't know, there are other things going on in your world, and you kind of touched on it to me briefly recently about the house that you have and the artists go to. So let's talk about some of your other, I know, like you say that, like,
Think about that.
thing. So you have other things going on. Tell us a little bit about your other projects.
Well, I have other projects that I am envisioning, but the project that you're referring to is one that I did in the past. That was the Jack Kerouac house, and that's still ongoing.
Yes.
Yes, and that's in College Park. That was a great partnership with a group of people that found this house that Jack Kerouac had written some of his most prominent works in, On the Road, Dharma Bums, and he lived there while he was writing them. So a group of us got together. We bought that house and the one next to it, and we renovated the one next to it to have that as a rental to support writers in residence in the Jack Kerouac house. And so that's an ongoing charity, and it's on Shady Lane in College Park, Shady Lane and Clouser, and you can drive by and you can see the little historic sign. So a writer gets to live in there for 1 year for free, and part of what they do is they give back to the community, and they do readings of their books.
They get to live in the whole house for a year?
Yeah, and then the rental next to it supports the living.
And how do they apply to be the artist in residence?
Yeah, there's a whole there's a process. So, you know, they go to a committee, they submit their application, it's reviewed by several people. They have to show writings that they've done in the past, and it's a whole process.
So, and then you just touched on future projects. I mean, my question I'd written down, I mean, you know, I tried to just have these questions as just like leaders. When I'm interested in a person, I want to know, you know, where they're going to go next and what they're going to bring to the party. For the listeners that don't know you, I want us all to go away and learn something. I think your life flipped on its axis 4 years ago, and you just kind of settled into surviving and healing and doing the job you're doing, even though you're doing it so well. I do feel like there's something bigger for you, and there's different things on the horizon. Yep. Where is life taking you?
I don't know.
Are you in a space now of just finding
I am exploring, all these different things that, light my fire, rekindle the spark. Mm-hmm. I've been living in the last 4 years really in the survival mode and just trying to get through the day and trying to do the best I can with the moment in front of me. And so, what is my next step? I really don't know. I have a lot of ideas, but I have not put any, wheels in motion yet. Mm-hmm. But I definitely, I see myself in, there's a lot of people that need help. There's a lot of, widows that don't know how to find themselves. I can see maybe doing something in that direction. Mm-hmm. I really don't know. I'm exploring a lot of different, one of the things I want to do is I want to walk the Camino de Santiago.
I love your accent. So let's talk. So you speak a couple of Spanish.
Yeah, my mother's from Ecuador.
And Brazilian though too, didn't you?
No, I understand Portuguese. No, Spanish.
Yeah, Spanish.
And I took French in college, but yeah.
I knew there was a few languages in there. Yeah. So your mother was from where?
Ecuador.
Yes. So tell me about this trip you want to do.
So Camino de Santiago de Compostela is a pilgrimage that people have been doing for hundreds of years. And, they're looking for, there's the remnants of St. James that are supposed to be in the Church of Santiago de Compostela. And there's different ways, different paths that you can walk it. And one of them is about a 40-day, one is a 2-week. But people do this, it's a pilgrimage to kind of find yourself. A friend of mine just got done with a 40-day path. passage. Had dinner with her a couple weeks ago.
And is it a difficult passage? Is there hardships?
Yes, because you're carrying your pack.
I feel like I've seen this.
So
Has this been televised?
There's been there was a movie, Martin Sheen, I think, made
Yes.
a movie when he walked it. There's been books written about it. Pablo Coelho's written a book. A lot. I mean, it's been a pilgrimage for thousands of years since the medieval times. So a lot of people have done it, and it's just something that I want to do.
Has anyone ever talked to you about writing about your life, but also the trip that you guys did? I see a beautiful movie of you guys on the boat. I mean, they might, throw in a few sharks and something else, but I mean, have you ever thought about telling this story? Did you write a diary when you were on?
I did. I wrote a diary, and I have like little books that I keep my little things in. Yes, I did. I wrote a diary, and I would love to help people figure out how to, maybe hop on an adventure like that, because a lot of people don't know even the first step to take, and it was so life-changing for us. That's another thing that I've thought about, just helping people figure out steps to do something like that.
It's amazing, because when I look at you, I see a woman that's so put together, and I know that's the reality that you give. But you always look so calm and collected and whatever. And sensible is the wrong word, but I love that you're so adventurous and you have that sense of adventure. Is it still there, even though you're one half of an adventurous couple?
Yes. I mean, that's been the hard thing for me.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to take these little adventures, with the Deepak Chopra to Hawaii and to Cabo. And so those were my first steps. And those were pretty safe adventures. But I still have that, that spark that I want to do more. And the Camino is going to be probably my first one that I do.
And will you do that with somebody?
The kids want to do it with me.
They do?
Yes.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yes.
And all of these healing journeys that you've been taking yourself on, are the kids involved, and has it helped them at all?
Nope, these have just been me.
Yeah.
But it's helped them because of that.
Is it helping you help them, though?
Yes.
Yeah. And they're doing great.
And we did the one, Michael Singer.
Yes.
Which was another one that, that was, and that's here in Florida. So that's something anybody can do.
No, I think I'm so happy to see that now you're having small waves and ripples on a daily basis. I can't even imagine for a second. I know you've been very, very kind to me, and you've helped me so much. And I want to explore that with you a bit more. And I know I need to listen and hear. And you always reach out, and you've been so kind. I think there's something in that in your future, and just sharing what you've done. And also, in the real estate market, especially here locally, and there's you, and there's a good friend, actually, Julie Bettasini. When I think of you, I think of her too. I think you both have that understated elegance. You know how to deal with the higher end of the market, and you know how to speak to people. But you do it so beautifully. Thank you. And it's elegance, and there's a lack of that in the industry. So just let people know that that's the way forward, because I think it would make it a much nicer industry for people to go in and be involved in. And well, I've really enjoyed talking to you. We just scratched the surface.
Yes.
There was just a little bit, and I'd love to talk a lot more. I think I'd be interested in seeing your words written down and you sharing your journey a lot more. So do that.
Okay.
And thank you for today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.